a long body of work, a long history of work for me. And it kind of, a lot of it grows out of the small little 8 pieces that are over there in the corner. Those are part of a group of eventually, I still haven't finished them, eventually there'll be 365 of them to represent a year. There's approximately 150 so far. But I started using, I've been doing pieces much more like Ken's work a long time ago in boxes. It contained found object work. And then I felt contained by the box, and I started trying to incorporate more of my background in painting into my work. And so that led me back to a surface and out of the box, and it also led me to use my materials in a slightly different way. And I've been really trying to work with a combination of found objects and natural materials and painting, and trying to find where those two things can meet. I've thrown into the mix photography, which is sort of the first art form I ever experimented with when I was a really small child, because we had a darkroom in my house. So I grew up with my brother and father playing in the darkroom, and I got a camera at age 7, a little Brownie camera. So I've been doing that, and so I started now incorporating the photographs as found moments, just like a found object. It's a found moment, and I'm encapsulating that and doing some of the same things that I do with the objects in the photographs. And so there's a few of those in this show as well. People always ask me about wax, and so I'm going to say 3 things about wax. Wax has been being used in art for over 2,000 years. It's a really stable, really old-fashioned style of process. The thing about wax is that it's a preservative. It inhibits moisture. It inhibits the growth of bacteria. It's antibacterial, actually. And so it's a preservative and it's a sealant. And for those reasons, it's been a really great material for me with my natural materials, because it stops the process of decay, and it halts that, and it seals the painting up. I actually recently had a leak in the roof of my studio, and it got on some of the wax things, but they weren't hurt at all. The parts that are covered with wax were just fine. So that's, you know, one of the things that's really attractive about wax. And the wax, we have wax paintings that were done, or encaustic paintings with wax and resin. Encaustic paintings that were done by the Greco-Romans and Egyptians dating from before, from 100 BC. And so those are still intact and still look really good, and you can actually see them. They look a little bit like icons. And so that's, so there's a long history. Wax hasn't been used as much until more recently as other forms. In fact, oil painting sort of took over from the use of encaustic and things, because when you don't have electricity, it's really hard to keep your wax at a soft, melted temperature. And so until the development of modern time, using wax in painting was a really, really hard thing to do. It was just hard, your paint would solidify in front of you, and keeping it warm to the right temperature over a fire wasn't so easy. And now we have hot plates and things, that makes it a lot easier. It's not as difficult a process in that way. And in terms of my found materials, I really like things that are sort of somewhere between everyday objects that are so common that you just don't even see them anymore, and they're lost little bits, seeds in particular, that we just don't even notice. And we don't, that's true with the photographs too. It's like moments we don't really focus on, things we don't really notice. And bringing those out and making them become part of our awareness, because I think that they're really beautiful, and that we need to look at our world around us, and sometimes focusing on the little things allows us to see the larger parts of the world in a bigger way or something. So those are sort of a few of my ideas about what I'm doing. With my work and with me in general, there's usually about 15 layers, and so I'm undoubtedly leaving out a whole lot of information. So, does anyone have any questions?
I know that some of your work, the newer work, they might be looking around and wonder if they're looking for whether you use wax or whatever, and you didn't use wax in all of them.
Oh, that's right. Yes, Bev remembers. I told her the other day. Really recently, I started experimenting with using various acrylic emulsions and acrylic paint versus oil paint as a way of giving me more control. Because one of the things that's difficult with using wax is that it's hard to necessarily always control what's going to happen when you pour the wax on there. And for a long time, and with these ones, I've gotten the objects under control, but quite a bit. But it used to be that when I'd start doing these, I had no idea what was going to happen when I poured that wax. Because sometimes the objects would float away on the surface of wax, they'd go skating across and things. And so I started thinking about using acrylics as a means and using acrylic emulsions as a way of allowing me to have more control. And so I can glue everything down kind of with an acrylic and then put more acrylic on top. And it's a slightly different effect. I feel like there's a lot, I need to work with it more, and I certainly don't like acrylic paint as well as oil paint. I have a lot of trouble with the painting part for me. And so that's an area where I'm really experimenting, and there are a few. The big one with the hollyhock seeds back there is one of the acrylic ones. And this one's also an acrylic one. I think those are, there's two smaller ones with acrylic too. But, so that's a new process for me. The wax ones, initially I used heat lamps, and I would keep the wax at melted point and melted while I placed all the seeds. And now I've been using some painting mediums and things to actually sort of hold them down a little bit, just enough. Some of them will float around in the wax, but I try to get things so that I hold down just long enough for me to get the wax on there, because the wax is really what's gluing it all together. Yeah.
Is there some patterns or is it randomness with these very tiny objects? Again, so you talked a lot about the medium and the wax, but what about the seeds? I'm trying to get the significance of the seeds. I like them floating around. You apparently are placing them somewhere.
I do. I spend quite a bit of time actually placing them. With these two larger ones, again, those are part of a group of paintings I'm working on that I call vectors and graphs, and they're really about the way that our world has become so computerized that everything, you look at bitmaps and for everything, even our digital photographs are all done in dots. They're just nice little dots. Thank you, this image. And so it's kind of pulling that out and playing with that idea of a bitmap and of those graphing things, and yet on a level that's containing seeds instead, Yeah.
How long have you been involved with artistic endeavors?
Oh, a long time. As a professional artist, I've been really creating work for around 20 years. And I moved to Eugene 4 years ago. I also recently this year, I've had a busy year this year, I just completed a big project for the Crescent Village development that's going on up in northern Eugene. They were building a couple of high-rises, and they hired me to do the artwork for one of the lots. So it was a competition, and I won one of the two. There were two artists selected, and I got one, and the other woman, Lynn Peterson, got the other. So. And my work there has been installed. Hers hasn't been installed. I think there's going to be another, an opening and everything once her work gets up. Her building hasn't been finished yet, so. So that's, and some of this work relates to that work in that piece is about, it's called Coast Valley Cascade, and it's about Lane County very specifically, and contains mostly plant materials and photographs from Lane County, in fact, exclusively from Lane County. And so some of this work was being worked on at the same time that I was working on that work, and they kind of influence each other. Some of these, the pieces with the marigold seeds, I started before I started that, and those I really love the way it looks like little hatch lines and drawings, and so I got very excited about them. Anybody else have anything to say?
Okay,
All right.
questions later then.